on to the next item on our agenda, which is Mooney Road. Charles, can you read that in for us, please?
The petition for Mooney Road Realty Trust for property located at 0 Mooney Road, as shown on map number 31, parcel number 17, as shown on the Burlington Assessors map. The applicant is seeking a variance from the minimum front yard setback requirements to build a house to be constructed 3 feet from the front boundary lot line. The town of Burlington's bylaws require front setback to be 25 feet. Article 5, Section 5.2.0.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Thomas Murphy for the applicant. With him is Gary Litchfield, who's the owner of the property through a trust. Before you is a lot that has quite a history to it, and I won't necessarily bore you with all of it, but I think some of it is pertinent. This lot was created back in the early to mid 50s. That whole subdivision down off of Peach Orchard Road and Oak Street and it's in there. It has back at the time it was approved, required lots in Burlington with 10,000 square feet and I think it was 60 feet of frontage. So this was a grandfathered lot. However, it's been at the end of Mooney Road for a long time, and if any of you drove up there, you'll know why. It's in a very tough spot. It's a lot of ledge. If you look at the topography of the plan in front of you, you can see it slopes up steeply from front towards the back. So it's developable, but it's expensive to do that, so it's been sitting there for a long time. My client purchased it roughly 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. And we all know what the value of land in Burlington has done the last 4 or 5 years, so it finally became viable for him to pursue it. We went back to the planning board this past spring into the summer. We had to get an amended subdivision plan approved by them because we had adjusted the lot lines a bit. You can see how the property line bulges down. They had adjusted Mooney Road at some point in the process. We had to bring the plan of record in compliance with the actual layout of the road. So in any event, we went through that with the planning board and we worked that out and they approved the plan. The plan, the one you see before you is essentially what they approved. So it's a buildable lot and Mr. Litchfield can build a house on the lot. However, in going through the process with the planning board, some abutters, particularly the people fronting on Peach Orchard Road, which to the right of the subject lot and towards the back especially, had a lot of concerns about the ledge and the blasting that would be required to put a house in there. So what we're here this evening for is requesting a variance which will allow us to move the house forward on the lot in the manner that's shown on the plan. By doing this, it will significantly reduce the amount of blasting necessary and the disruption to the neighborhood. If you look at that house as it's cited on the plan in front of you, it's the front corner of the house is 3 feet off of Mooney Road. If we had to push that back 22 feet to comply with zoning, if you look at the topography, the back of the house would go from about 155 to 160 back to about a 180, the topography. So that just tells you how much material would have to be removed from there and blasted out of there to be able to fit a house in there. A couple other things that I think are important for the board to keep in mind, that the Mooney Road, where you see the corner of the house where it approaches Mooney Road there, that 3-foot setback, Mooney Road in that area is just a paper street. It's not finished. And this is the last house on Mooney Road, so it'll never be finished. The road will dead end at where it's going to be extended to be able to put this driveway in. So it's going to be a situation where even though on paper it's 3 feet from what appears to be Mooney Road on paper, the actual pavement of Mooney Road is down to the area where it says existing pavement. That's essentially where the road's going to go, and then the driveway cuts up. So I would submit that even though it's less than 25 feet on paper from the street, visually from the paved street, it's going to be close to 25 feet. And obviously, you know, in getting to the criteria necessary to get a variance approved, one thing is that it's not detrimental to the public good. This, in the alternative, I would submit, it would be greatly beneficial to the public good, especially if you're a neighbor in that area, with the amount of site work, blasting, and disruption that they would have to live through if this were not approved. It also, from a standpoint of how the house would line up with the rest of the street, you can see the adjacent house on Mooney Road to the left of our property, where that house is located, and most of the houses are a similar depth from the street, and this would be in keeping with that line. Clearly, in this case, there's hardships related to the topography. The ledge is very extensive up there. As I said, it's not a detriment to the public good, and I would argue it doesn't derogate from the intent of the bylaw either, as there was plenty of spacing between the properties. Visually, it's going to be close to 25 feet from the paved surface, and there was no house beyond it on Mooney Road, so that it's not infringing on anybody on the other side. So that, in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman, is what we're looking for relief, and it's something that will, in my opinion, greatly benefit the neighbors, and particularly the abutting neighbors. Obviously, happy to answer any questions or address any concerns.
All right, we'll start with the board. Michael, any questions?
Do you know the exact distance of the proposed house to the existing paving? You said around 25 feet?
To the existing, where down that sign says existing pavement?
Yeah, do you know what that,
That's, to the far corner of where it says the existing pavement, it's a little less than 25, it might be around 20. Down to where the actual driveway enters into what is the existing pavement there, that's 25 feet.
Anything else?
thank you.
John?
Also,
Mark?
so, Tom, the existing, the proposed drive down to the existing paving, you say is 25? Is it-
From the existing pavement, just so you know, probably 10 or 12 years ago, they put a coating of, binder coat of hot top there.
Right,
So that's going to be ripped up in a properly paved street, but, so it says existing pavement, he hasn't paved the road yet, that's just stuff
oh,
that
I
was
see,
there
so
before.
are they gonna,
But it's gonna go within that same footprint. If you look at the bottom part of where it says existing pavement, you can see berm.
I do see that, yeah.
That side of, the southerly side of the road is gonna be going. On the northerly part, just above where it says existing, you see a similar berm.
I do see that,
That, between those two berms is where the pavement is going to be.
okay. So that's where the actual hot top is gonna be.
The right side of the driveway going from the corner of the house down to the existing pavement sign, that's roughly 20 to 25 feet, depending on where you're standing when you measure it.
All right, and,
Frankly, the road's gonna almost just look like this driveway for this house. It's just gonna kind of loop up in there.
yeah, I agree that, you obviously, you have the hardship, I believe, because of the topography of the land, and I don't believe that it's a detriment, because, as you say, it's not gonna result in blasting, and you say there were neighbors that were
Yes.
concerned about the blasting?
We had several subcommittee meetings with the planning board during this process, and also some planning board hearings as well. And that was a common theme between some of the abutters who showed up. They were concerned about all the ledge in there and the blasting that they were
So
afraid of.
did Mr. Hannafin and, or the Hannafins and the Wexablats, did they weigh in on this, or?
The Hannafins, Mr. Hannafin, as you might know, passed away recently, but his son Dan
Right.
kind of was a spokesperson for the family, and he was at most of the meetings, and we worked with him.
Supported,
and-
yeah.
And he was fine with everything. Mr. Wexblatt was actually one of the people who were at a planning board subcommittee meeting and specifically raised this as a concern. And when we told him that we once we got the approvals from planning board that we needed, we were gonna come forward to this board to ask for this type of relief. I think he was very happy with it.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Charles?
On the other side of the house, it says there's like a 10-foot setback on that side setback. Is that existing already? Is that in the front corner?
Is that a plus one?
It is a plus one, yes, he is.
That is not relief we requested.
Okay, just,
We'll have to review that with the engineer and Gary.
We can probably just turn that house a little bit and bring it over insignificant enough to pick up that 5 feet, I think. That was just a,
If you revolve the house a little bit. The only thing, obviously, before the board is the 3-foot variance for here, so.
yeah, I just wanted to know if it was,
It's a good question, and it's a legitimate point.
we might see it again or not. As far as the current variance in front of us, very obviously a hardship with this current one. I don't really see too much of an issue with it. That's all I got.
No questions at this time.
Jim?
I'm just curious, is this the last buildable lot
It
on the
is.
street?
Again, the topography, Mooney Road goes up at a fairly severe slope as you get past the Hannafin House. And it actually, when you get to the end of what it shows as Mooney Road here, you bump up against a yard that's on Peach Orchard Road. So this just dead ends right into somebody's backyard on Peach Orchard.
I'm good.
All right, yeah, I didn't really have anything more to add than what was already mentioned. I noticed the 10-foot setback on the side as well, so we'll have to circle back around and have a discussion about how we're gonna approach that.
I'm a little surprised at that. I'm going to either make this work with the 3 feet by turning it, and if that's undoable, I'd end up being back here because I think it was maybe missed on my
That
end.
was an oversight. Mine too.
But I think I'll play with that configuration, just turning it a bit and maybe sliding it if we can pick up that 5 feet. So I'm kind of confident we won't be looking for that.
I agree with some of the other members that have mentioned that I believe there's a hardship here with the ledge and the topography, so, we'll come back around, this is a public hearing, so why don't we open this up to the public? If anyone's here that would like to make a comment on this proposal, come up to the microphone, introduce yourself. Come on up.
So my name is Alan Wexelblatt. My wife and I are here as abutters, the previously mentioned. It's a little hard to visualize from this, but if you will imagine the topography seen from the side, there's a fairly significant hill, and our house on Peach Orchard sits on, let's say what we'll call the left side, right? And as is proposed here, our house had initially been intended to be farther up, but it was built much closer to what the street was in order to avoid exactly the kind of problem that's being described here. So our house is a fine house, and I think it's a fine exemption to grant. And obviously, we have a personal interest because we would like, as discussed, not to have more blasting, right? Because we literally are adjacent to that hill, so a significant amount of blasting would present a problem that we would have to talk to our insurance about, and it would pose a potential extra expenditure for us that we would like to avoid. So we are in support of this variance. Also, that street, again, I recommend visiting it. It's a very quiet, pleasant street. We walk our dog there often. And as just described, the moving of the house here will visually align it with the rest of the street. So it won't look out of place. It won't look like, a distortion to the neighborhood if it's placed as described on this plan. So that was all I had to say. I'm in favor of this for obvious personal reasons, but also just, in terms of maintaining the appearance of the neighborhood, I think it will fit in. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this? All right,
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
I just had one comment.
sure.
All right. Tom, Mr. Wexblatt made a point of it's fine as it's sitting according to this plan. So if it's moved, will that change the aesthetics? Is that,
Not in the sense, I think, that he was expressing concern of.
all right.
If it rotates a bit, it was originally going to be a lot further back in the lot, which would be closer to his house, and would, here, by rotating it the way that Gary's described, it might, that left corner would go back a couple of feet, but it's not gonna be a significant change.
okay.
Do you have a comment?
Hi, I'm Michelle Wexelblatt. When Dan Hannaford came and talked about the house, he talked about the history of the difficulty in building on this lot, and they've been trying to build a house on there periodically since the 1950s. I am interested in if, I'm hearing that there's going to be less blasting, but there's still going to be a need for some, is my question. And what is the rest of the lot actually going to look like as a functional house? Because if you think about it, our house right now is only sort of functional in the fact that we have those backwoods, that hill that is sloped for us as a usable space for our kids to wander around in. For their house, though, there is no actual usable space around it for a family to be there. And I'm wondering how much other blasting there is going to be to make there be side room besides the house in order to make a house functional. And that if moving that forward is going to use up some of that land, is this actually still a viable thing to do given the limitations of the lot? And that's my question, even with moving it forward.
Short answer is yes. You're right, it's a legitimate question, a legitimate issue, and speaking on behalf of my client, and you can certainly pitch in, they're not gonna do anything out to the back of the lot. It's just too expensive and too disruptive to do that. They will clear out enough around the house so you can, obviously walk around to it. If you look to the left of the house, there's a little bit of room for some yard, and there's gonna be a little bit of a front yard. Granted, whoever buys this is probably not gonna be keeping horses, but they'll be able to clear enough of it to make it a usable lot for family. It is also a dead end, so there's there's wooded areas, and there's a lot of, and you also got the school. School's not too far away for places.
But I believe that all the wooded areas in that area belong to people, are part of their lands. Ours is.
Some is, yeah, the paper road is not, but, again, if you go down Mooney Circle, there's a walkway to get over to the school area, there's a big field down there, and there's things of that nature. So, clearly, it's not ideal, but it's viable, and, somebody maybe who has a bunch of kids who want a big yard certainly is not gonna buy it, but, the house will be in accordance with the other houses in the area. I guess the short answer is my client wouldn't be doing it if he didn't think it was viable.
Is there anyone else that'd like to come up before we close the public hearing? No? Make the motion again.
Shall I make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Does anyone have any other questions or comments before we take a stab at this? None? All right. I'm just gonna comment on this for when someone, if and when someone makes a motion. On the 3-foot variance, if the motion is made to grant it, the 10-foot variance, the 10-foot side setback is just a concern of mine. I know, Gary, you said you thought you could pivot it. Usually we'll reference a plan, so
I think the motion would have to contain language that says these left sideline, however, these chosen plan to be 10 feet, must be 15 in compliance of.
right, I just don't know if, how you, yeah, I guess if you're just
Need to
pivoting.
Reference a plan.
Yeah, we referenced the plan with the exception that the side setback, yeah, all right, I just wanna make sure we word it correctly to get it right.
Without the specific relief, I don't think we can get a building permit anyway, so.
Right.
That's the ultimate.
Okay. All right, that was my comment. If anyone would like to make an attempt at a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 0 Mooney Road for a 3-foot front line variance as shown on drawing F 12722 dated July 13th, 2018.
All right, the motion is made to approve the 3-foot front setback variance for 0 Mooney Road as shown on Plan F12722 dated July 13th, 2018. Give us a second.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
Thank you, members of the board.
All right. Find out.
Are you gonna make reference to it?
Yeah, yeah. The next item on our agenda is 0 Wynn Street. Brenda, could you read that in for us, please?
Sure, the petition of Michael D. Wynn for property located at 0 Wynn Street, as shown on map 49, parcel 70-0 of the Burlington Assessors Map. The applicant is seeking a variance to construct a single-family home on the lot. This existing lot has a 75 feet of frontage, requiring a variance due to the Town of Burlington's bylaw, Article 5, Section 5.2.0, requires a lot located within the RO Single-Family Residential District to have a minimum of 100 feet of frontage, as shown on plans filed on November 9, 2016, and a copy of which is on file with the town clerk's office.
All right, before we get started, Mark is going to recuse himself from this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman. Thomas Murphy. I'm representing the petitioner here, whose name is Michael Wynn. I don't think Michael was able to make it this evening. This is kind of an interesting lot. This property is partially in Woburn and partially in Burlington. As you can see on the plan that was submitted with the application, the town line cuts diagonally across the front part of the lot so that the entire frontage is in Woburn and a little bit of the front yard is in Woburn. The balance of the lot is in Burlington. This was approved in 1960, a subdivision plan dated back in 1960, signed by both the Woburn Planning Board and the Burlington Planning Board, recorded at that time. I've got copies of the subdivision plan if anybody wants to see them. But essentially, most of the lots in the plan are in Burlington, and they all have 100 feet frontage and at least 20,000 square feet of area, which is what the Burlington bylaws required. The plan shows next to our lot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots along Wynn Street, all with 75 feet of frontage and 10,000 square feet of land, which is what the Woburn bylaws were at the time. The first 2 lots after our lot on Wynn Street have again, the front part of the lots in Woburn and the back portions of the back part are in Burlington. Those houses have been built for a long time. They're all Woburn residents because the structures are both in Woburn. Our lot, given where the lot line, the town line cuts across, has frontage in Woburn, but the structure itself will be in Burlington. So my client, Mr. Wynn, purchased the property back, I think he's owned it for 15 or 20 years, maybe not quite that long. But if you drive by there right now, there's an old garage there. It's been there forever, and I think like a contractor just used it to park some trucks in or something. But when he bought it, it was always kind of with the idea that that's where, when his family got to a point where it was time to downsize, he'd build a house there for himself, and that's what he wants to do now. He's a resident of Burlington, and, you know, this would allow him to remain being a resident of Burlington, but he'll, with the small house and what he needs for right now. So in any event, we went to the building department and just to discuss it, because it's an odd, we wasn't quite sure which frontage bylaws apply. Was it Woburn because it's in Woburn? Was it Burlington because the house is going to be in Burlington? And Mr. Clancy in his letter, which again was submitted with the application, points to a Burlington bylaw, number 5.1.2.3, which says that lots partially in Burlington, the provisions and regulations and restrictions of the Burlington bylaws shall be applied to that portion of such lots as lies in the town of Burlington, in the same manner as if the entire lot was situated therein. So it's kind of vague, frankly. The part of the land in Burlington doesn't have frontage. It will comply with Burlington square footage and Burlington setbacks, but the area of the land that is the frontage is actually in Woburn. So to me, it's arguable as to, my opinion is I think Woburn bylaws apply there. I would also submit that when the subdivision plan was approved back in 1960, both planning boards signed off on it. There's no notation on the plan, as I've seen in approved plans before, saying not a buildable lot or subject to, unless Burlington bylaws are applied or whatever. There was no restrictions or other notation made on the plan. And I would submit that this particular lot was considered to be a buildable lot at the time that this subdivision plan was presented and signed by both planning boards back in 1960. Nevertheless, the Burlington building inspector, in his letter, he said, I think he agrees it's kind of a gray area. The clearest answer would be to seek a frontage variance, because clearly if this board would have granted variance, then it's no longer an issue. So that's why we're here this evening, and it's to request the variance for the frontage. The rest of the lot will comply with zoning. It's got more than enough square footage, and the house will meet all setbacks when it's constructed. So that's kind of the background here. And like I said, it's kind of an interesting situation. It's one I've never come across before. But I would submit that the current owner bought it assuming, you never assume anything, but frankly, that's what he did. He thought it was a buildable lot because it's on a plan and it looks the same as all the lots next to it along Wynn Street, except it goes deeper. And when it's now at the point where he's thinking of doing something with it, he realizes that maybe it's not as cut and dry as he thought it was going to be, but decided to come before this board to request the relief that we've asked for. So we'd be requesting a 25-foot variance on the frontage. Again, the criteria by the statute, I don't think it's derogation of the bylaws. Frankly, it's going to be in keeping with pretty much every house right along that stretch of Wynn Street in terms of size and appearance. The spacing will be the same as all the other houses along that street. The house to the right of the house of our lot, as you look at it in Burlington, is set back like 50 or 60 feet from that side yard. So there's plenty of spacing between those houses, so it's not going to be imposing on those abutters. So I think the intent of the bylaw would still be met, and I believe there's no, the public interest is not going to be in any way injured by this. It's in a single-family neighborhood. It's going to be another single-family home on a lot that's of sufficient size. As far as hardship, I would argue that the hardship, frankly, is the shape of the lot. This lot was created in such a way that I believe at the time people thought it was a valid lot. That question has now arisen. My client's trapped by the four corners of the lot as it appears. He's got plenty of land. He's got what he was told or what he understood to be a sufficient frontage, and I would submit that it's equal frontage to the other 5 or 6 lots right there along Wynn Street. So with all that, the request is that the board grant a variance to allow him to construct a single-family home on that lot. And again, any questions or concerns, I'm happy to address.
Before we take comments from the board, could you pass the subdivision plan around?
Yeah, yeah.
I'd like to see it. Jim, we'll start with you if you have any questions or comments.
What, Tom, what's the frontage?
Thanks.
Do you know the frontage on the circle in Burlington behind the house?
Sorry, Jim, which was?
This cul-de-sac behind the house?
Oh, Bethel Road, yeah, Bethel
Yeah.
Lane. We do have frontage on that. It's not sufficient to,
It's not,
it's like 50 feet roughly, it's about a quarter way around the
55, 82.
cul-de-sac. Yeah, so it's not sufficient to create legal frontage. The second page on that handout is the bylaw dealing with lost parcel in Burlington, just so you can see the language.
Jim, any other?
I'm good.
Brenda?
Just curious, who's delivering the mail? Woburn or Burlington?
Good question. Right now, there's no mail there, but I guess they'll have to cross that bridge. It's gonna be a Burlington home, so it's got a Burlington address on our assessors maps, but it also has a Woburn address on their assessors map, so it's,
Good luck. No, I have no questions, thank you.
Charles?
So where's the driveway right now? Where's the curb cut? Is that in Woburn or is that in Burlington?
the curb cut has to be in Woburn, because the entire frontage is in Woburn. I don't know exactly where on the lot it is, I think it's.
Yeah, that's fine.
Somewhere.
So it's on the Woburn.
It's definitely
parcel.
moving, yeah. Yeah, if you notice, the diagonal is such that it crosses right in the corner of,
All right. I don't have any other questions at the moment.
John?
I don't have any questions, more of a comment. I mean, the lot is obviously requires a variance. It doesn't have a frontage in Burlington. And the law in Woburn is 75 feet. In 1960, they made it a legal lot. To me, this is a housekeeping thing. This is just to make it legal for the papers to go through. So,
All right. Michael?
I have no questions.
Okay. I just have another comment about the front, the frontage. If all the frontage is in Woburn, how do we make a variance for a different town?
Well, I think our variance will tie into the comment the building inspector made that the entire lot will be treated as if the whole lot were in Burlington.
I think that the building department's way of looking at it is that he can't issue a building permit for a house in Burlington unless it has 100 feet of frontage, even though the frontage is in another town, he wants it to comply with Burlington. But you're right, I had the same question, frankly. I said, the same way, I was thinking of going to Woburn and trying to pull a building permit, but then they'd be granting a permit for a house to be built in Burlington, even though it's a legal lot as far as they're concerned. So it's kind of a strange
That's
dynamic.
odd one, definitely.
But I think, which is kind of the building inspector's point in his letter, I think he said the cleanest way to do it was by getting a variance here. That way you're allowing him to issue a building permit on a house that's gonna be situated in Burlington, but that doesn't have 100 feet of frontage.
So, yeah, okay. I agree with John. I think this is kind of a housekeeping thing. This was a legal lot at one point, and I didn't look it up, but I'm assuming that this section that Mr. Clancy is quoting here in the bylaw is post when this plan. So it's that exception to this and, the change of the Woburn zoning that has changed this to be a non-buildable lot at this time, so there's a hardship there, even though it's changes in zoning per, something that they can't control, so. Just a question on this is, the intent is obviously to continue to access the lot from Wynn Street, not from
Correct.
Bethel Lane?
Right.
Okay. I guess just that would be my only real really stipulation on this, is that it would continue
Yeah,
to
that's,
be.
we have no problem with that, that's certainly the intent.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Does anyone in the audience like to speak on this in favor or against? Come up to the microphone, introduce yourself. No?
Just so you know, because of the location of the lot, people in Woburn and Burlington receive certified mailings on this, so.
I live in Fort Bethel Lane. My name is Felicia Irachi, and my wife is Anna Irachi. I just like to turn off, does it look like a lot to be able to do in a house? Because, you know, since I bought this house 8 years ago, it was look like a dump, garage, mouse, whatever, bunch of stuff, dirty, dirty, dirty. He cleaned it up finally. But I like it if he can be a good proposal for the house. But they look to me as small. I don't even know my fence if it's is in the right spot or not. I will gonna check on that before I'm gonna do anything. I don't have any problem let it do in the house, but they look to me a little smaller, the lot.
The width of the lot looks
Yeah, I
small to
think
you?
so.
Yeah,
I wanna fit my property far away from my line of property.
okay.
I like to know.
It is obviously a narrower lot than you find usually in Burlington, but the setbacks will be the same, so you're still gonna have the same. You can have
And,
this, you can have this, with this dotted line is.
Another thing I'm gonna mention, right in front of, by the back, it was a dumpster one time, because the previous owner, who was living 6 months in Florida, 6 months in here. I wasn't care, because I don't think it really belonged to that lot, to that dumpster, I find it, but I cleaned it. It looked better for me, looked better for the family, the rest of them. So, I'd like to see how far it's gonna go
You
from
can
the
have that
line.
if you want, but I guess the only assurance I would give you is this guy is gonna build this house for himself, so he's gonna put it, whatever he puts up is gonna look nicer than that old garage there. I guarantee you that. But it'll go within, see the dotted line is the setback footprint. It's got.
How many feet they gonna be? How many feet they gonna be
House?
for? No, far away from the fence.
15
house.
The setbacks in Burlington are 15 feet, so it has to be,
15?
it has to be at least 15 feet all the way around.
Well, it looks straight in there. That's my line, all right, facing my four-bed line. Why is it juggle in there? I don't know, right now it's a juggle.
So,
Let me see.
this is the garage, here's Bethel Lane right here.
Okay, that's better line, number 4. Okay, it looked to me, it's straight in there. But if you look on the fence right now, it's a 2 feet of juggle. I never checked with them a surveyor, right? I will gonna check on that though.
Yeah,
It looked to me it's a little Mickey Mouse.
well, like
Be
I said,
honest.
the thing that's there is coming down, and whatever is built there will be within the envelope that is allowed by the setbacks.
With the respect to the owner, I could be a gentleman, I never met it, I've been 8 years in there, I know that guy, he rent whatever there, whatever it does. It's a little better than what it was, the situation, but I don't know about the house, it's gonna be really looking good or looking worse. If you're gonna do right, you know,
I think he'll do it right.
well, I wanna check with my surveyor because
No, you
it
should
looked
do
to
that.
me a straight column there, but the reality is not a straight fence. So I don't know, because I call a lot of surveyor, they don't wanna come down there. But I will gonna check if they're gonna pass, then no problem.
You can keep that, you can
Yeah,
show
thank
it
you, I
show it to your
appreciate it.
surveyor, that might make his job
Yeah,
easier.
because it looked to me, a straight line there.
Yeah,
But if you come,
I'm not familiar enough.
you're
with
not
the laws.
familiar.
Yeah,
Well, he represented the
yeah,
gentleman.
right.
He showed the design, no?
Well, he hasn't designed his house yet. He's
Oh,
just
okay.
looking for permission to build a house. And
Okay.
then he's gonna,
But they own the lot, that's all.
he does own the lot.
Okay, I must have a plan, no?
Okay, but
Okay.
you can keep that one.
Okay, thank you. Well, like I said, I have no problem. It should be better than what it is right now, and what it was before. I even call it builder department years ago. He come in there, help him out to me. He sent a letter there, he fix it. But it took him a long time to do that. And I don't wanna let that happen again. If you're gonna build that house, I got no problem. But if you gotta do it right.
Right.
I'm gonna check with the line. I wanna know how far you're gonna go. That's it. If you do damage to the fence, it will gonna be replaced. You got no problem, we're gonna be there. I guess that's another, but can't control it there, but, hope you're gonna looking good.
Yeah. Well, I would assume that a single-family house would be a better use and a better look than a garage for
Oh,
a
that's true,
contractor.
yeah.
Yeah,
I remember planting mouse,
yeah,
and with the respect, I got no problem no more. It was first year. My daughter lived with me, I was so scared. I said, "Daddy, what's going on?" It disappeared. That's good.
yeah.
It took him a long time though.
Okay.
So if you're gonna do the house, you gotta do right. And I understand how big it gonna be this house. How big it gonna be in a small lot.
It'll comply with zoning. I don't think he's designed anything yet. He obviously understands it has to be smaller than, he's not looking to build a big house. That's why he's doing this.
You're not gonna build in a condos for sure,
No, I can't do that.
yeah.
No, It'll be a single-family home.
Well, I wanna be cautious, I just make sure, before you start to do, I wanna check with my surveyor,
That's fine. It's,
number one. And number two, if you let it build, then I got no problem, just say that. If you do damage, I want you to replace. And keep clean as much as you can, because right now, still is dumps in there. And one time I brought a chemical, stuff like that, it's not right.
Right,
It's a residential area, not a commercial. With the respect to the owner, he doesn't know maybe, because
Sure.
he doesn't live in there, he just own it. But anyway, I gotta guess nobody. I just, if you let it do, you gotta do right. Thank you.
all right, thank you. Tom, with, just a comment on that, the intention would be to tear the existing structure down?
correct.
Okay,
And if there is a dumpster there, obviously that will just,
okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to comment on this? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Anyone else have any other questions or comments before we make a motion?
Nope.
All right, just one comment, which doesn't have to do with the application. We have Mark sitting out, so, just for,
Just voted.
what's that?
I just voted, so.
Yeah, all right, so, we all kind of voted on that, I'm not worried about that, but, so, Jim will have you vote, Michael will have you vote on the next one that we need an alternate, all right? Just so we're clear on who's voting. All right, so if anyone would like to make a motion on this item.
Make the motion to grant as requested.
All right,
Per plan, whatever the plan number is here. Let's see it. As requested, yeah.
yeah, well, that was reference to the date, yeah. All right, motion is made to approve the variance for 0 Wynn Street to provide 75 feet of frontage along Wynn Street, as shown on the plan submitted dated June 4th, is that the date? Oh, dated October 12th, 2018. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of the board.
Thank you. Yeah, bring them in, we can do the minutes. Thank you.
Get his house for Sunday then.
All right, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes from our November, what was the date? 20th meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.